Baby! Okay. I know. It's inconvenient that I like for these lives to be titled and for people to have a good idea of at least the flow of my day. I know it's inconvenient. Believe me, I'm the one who experiences it the most acutely. Hey, Renasha, thank you for coming back. You are actually who I was talking about. I don't love telling people, hello, also goodbye. That shit's rude. But we're back. And that's what matters. Sort of. I've lost my mics. Where are you? Oh, mics, where have you gone? Oh, mics, oh, where can you be? You're in a little gray bag that's made of felt. Oh, where can you be? There's only two places you could be, friend. And why aren't you in the other one? Or why aren't you in this one? This is the one you're supposed to be in. La dee da do dee dee dee. I don't wanna grow up. I'm a Toys R Us kid. Ba-doo ba ba doo ba da ba doodly did. Hey, Casey. I'm doing great. Nah, you didn't come in at the wrong time. Maybe from your perspective, it was the wrong time to come in. Bow, chaka, wow. Thank you, Casey. I'm great, Renasha. I'm great. We're going to move to this reading as soon as I get this microphone. 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 Oh, was it the movie phone? Kind of saying that like movie phone in my own head. Okay, now I shouldn't need to be nearly so loud in order to project my voice over to the camera. What up, Eric? Rick. Really, he's a Richard, but he's online, so he's Eric. I'm funny and dumb. Don't repeat the things I say out loud. Your girlfriend will get mad. We're about to read, we're about to continue Spoopyween. Day 15, day 15. I hope I numbered that correctly. We're going to read The Coming Race as soon as my computer will get around to opening Kindle. Just fucking do it. Just fucking do it. God damn it. Oh, okay. Well, it opened 8 versions. One was plenty. Welcome back, Eric. I remember you from somewhere. We're on chapter 10, and that's where my computer opened. It looks like we're going to go through chapter 13 tonight. It's much needed. listen to me read? All right, I've got you all here. I should hydrate. I should smokulate. And I got the nice spooky glasses thing going on. The nice reflective glasses thing going on. Which everybody knows I love so much when that happens. It's my favorite. All right. We return to Edward Edward Bulwer Lytton's The Coming Race, a dystopian sci-fi novel. And once I'm done with these little micro coughs, I'll get right at it. We're reading chapter 10. Continuing from our narrator. The word Arna, pronounced broadly Arna, corresponds with our plural men. On, pronounced Arn, the singular with man. The word for woman is Gi, pronounced hard as in Gi, or Guy, rather, pronounced hard as in Guy. It forms itself into Guy-I for the plural, but the G becomes soft in the plural like Jai-I. They have a proverb to the effect that this difference in pronunciation is symbolical, for that the female sex is soft in the concrete but hard to deal with in the individual. The Guy-I, or the Jai-I, are in the fullest enjoyment of all the rights of equality with males, for which certain philosophers above ground contend. In childhood, they perform the offices of work and labor impartially with the boys, and indeed, in the earlier age appropriated to the destruction of animals irreclaimably hostile, the girls are frequently preferred, as being by constitution more ruthless under the influence of fear or hate. In the interval between infancy and the marriageable age, familiar intercourse between the sexes is suspended. At the marriageable age, it is renewed, never with worse consequences than those which attend upon marriage. All arts and vocations allotted to the one sex are open to the other, and the Jai arrogate to themselves a superiority in all those abstruse and mystical branches of reasoning, for which they say the Arna are unfitted by a duller sobriety of understanding, or the routine of their matter-of-fact occupations, just as young ladies in our own world constitute themselves authorities in the subtlest points of theological doctrine, for which few men, actively engaged in worldly business, have sufficient learning or refinement of intellect. Whether owing to early training in gymnastic exercises or to their constitutional organization, the Jai are usually superior to the Arna in physical strength, an important element in the consideration and maintenance of female rights. They attain to loftier stature, and amid their rounder proportions are embedded sinews and muscles as hardy as those of the other sex. Indeed, they assert that, according to the original laws of nature, females were intended to be larger than males, and maintain this dogma by reference to the earliest formations of life in insects, and in the most ancient family of the vertebra, viz. Fishes, in both of which the females are generally large enough to make a meal of their consorts if they so desire. After, or above all, the Jai have a readier and more concentrated, concentred power over that mysterious fluid or agency which contains the element of destruction, with a larger portion of that sagacity which comprehends dissimulation. Thus, they cannot only defend themselves against all aggressions from the males, but could, at any moment when he least expected his danger, terminate the existence of an offending spouse. To the credit of the Jaiai, no instance of their abuse of this lawful superiority in the art of destruction is on record for several ages. The last that occurred in the community I speak of appears, according to their chronology, to have been about 2,000 years ago. A guy, then, in a fit of jealousy, slew her husband, and this abominable act inspired such terror among the males that they emigrated in a body and left all the Jaiai to themselves. The history runs that the widowed Jaiai, thus reduced to despair, fell upon the murderess when in her sleep, and therefore unarmed, and killed her, and then entered into a solemn obligation amongst themselves to abrogate forever the exercise of their extreme conjugal powers, and to inculcate the same obligation forever and ever on their female children. By this conciliatory process, a deputation dispatched to the fugitive consorts succeeded in persuading many to return, but those who did return were mostly the elder ones. The younger, either from too craven a doubt of their consorts or too high an estimate of their own merits, rejected all overtures, and, remaining in their communities, were caught up there by other mates, with whom perhaps they were no better off. But the loss of so large a portion of the male youth operated as a salutary warning of the Jaiai, and confirmed them in the pious resolution to which they pledged themselves. Indeed, it is now popularly considered that by long hereditary disuse, the Jaiai have lost both the aggressive and defensive superiority over the Arna which they once possessed. Just as in the inferior animals above the earth, many peculiarities in their original formation, intended by nature for their protection, gradually fade or become inoperative when not needed under altered circumstances. I should be sorry, however, for any Arn who induced a guy to make the experiment whether he or she were the stronger. From the incident I have narrated, the Arna date certain alterations in the marriage customs, tending, perhaps, somewhat to the advantage of the male. They now bind themselves in wedlock only for 3 years. At the end of each third year, either male or female can divorce the other and is free to marry again. At the end of 10 years, the Arn has the privilege of taking a second wife, allowing the first to retire if she so please. These regulations are for the most part a dead letter. Divorces and polygamy are extremely rare, and the marriage state now seems singularly happy and serene among this astonishing people. The Jaiai, notwithstanding their boastful superiority in physical strength and intellectual abilities, being much curbed into gentle manners by the dread of separation or of a second wife, and the Arna being very much the creatures of custom, and not, except under great aggravation, likely to exchange for hazardous novelties faces and manners to which they are reconciled by habit. But there is one privilege the Jaiai carefully retain, and the desire for which, perhaps, forms the secret motive of most lady asserters of woman rights above ground. They claim the privilege here usurped by men of proclaiming their love and urging their suit. In other words, of being the wooing party rather than the wooed. Such a phenomenon as an old maid does not exist among Jaiai. Indeed, it is very seldom that a guy does not secure any Arn upon whom she sets her heart if his affections be not strongly engaged elsewhere. However coy, reluctant, and prudish the male she courts may prove at first, yet her perseverance, her ardor, her persuasive powers, her command over the mystic agencies of Vril are pretty sure to run down his neck into what we call the fatal noose. Their argument for the reversal of that relationship of the sexes which the blind tyranny of man has established on the surface of the earth appears cogent, and is advanced with a frankness which might be well commended to impartial consideration. They say that of the two, the female is by nature of a more loving disposition than the male, that love occupies a larger space in her thoughts and is more essential to her happiness, and that therefore she ought to be the wooing party, that otherwise the male is a shy and dubitant creature, that he has often a selfish predilection for the single state, that he often pretends to misunderstand tender glances and delicate hints, that, in short, he must be resolutely pursued and captured. They add, moreover, that unless the guy can secure the Arn of her choice, and one whom she would not select out of the whole world becomes her mate, she is not only less happy than she otherwise would be, but she is not so good at being, not so good a being, that her qualities of heart are not sufficiently developed. whereas the Arn is a creature that lastingly concentrates his affections on one object, that if he cannot get the guy whom he prefers, he easily reconciles himself to another guy, and finally, that at the worst, if he is loved and taken care of, it is less necessary to the welfare of his existence that he should love as well as be loved. He grows contented with his creature comforts and the many occupations of thought which he creates for himself. Whatever may be said as to this reasoning, the system works well for the male, for being thus sure that he is truly and ardently loved, and that the more coy and reluctant he shows himself, the more determination to secure him increases. He generally contrives to make his consent dependent on such conditions as he thinks the best calculated to ensure, if not a blissful, at least a peaceful life. Each individual Arn has his own hobbies, his own ways, his own predilections, and, whatever they may be, he demands a promise of full and unrestrained concession to them. This, in the pursuit of her object, the guy readily promises, and, as the characteristic of this extraordinary people is an implicit veneration for truth, and her word, once given, is never broken, even by the giddiest guy, the conditions stipulated for are religiously observed. In fact, notwithstanding all their abstract rights and powers, the Jai are the most amiable, conciliatory, and submissive wives I have ever seen, even in the happiest households above ground. It is an aphorism among them that where a guy loves, it is her pleasure to obey. It will be observed that in the relationship of the sexes I have spoken only of marriage, for such is the moral perfection to which this community has attained, that any illicit connection is as little possible among them as it would be to a couple of linnets during the time they agreed to live in pairs. Yeah, Eric's got the basics of the setup. Chapter 11. Nothing had more perplexed me in seeking to reconcile my sense to the existence of regions extending below the surface of the earth, and habitable by beings, if dissimilar from, still, in all material points of organism, akin to those in the upper world, and the contradiction thus presented to the doctrine in which, I believe, most geologists and philosophers concur, viz., that though with us the sun is the great source of heat, yet the deeper we go beneath the crust of the earth, the greater is the increasing heat, being, it is said, found in the ratio of a degree for every foot commencing from 50 feet below the surface. But though the domains of the tribe I speak of were on the higher ground, so comparatively near to the surface that I could account for a temperature therein suitable to organic life, yet even the ravines and valleys of that realm were much less hot than philosophers would deem possible at such a depth. Certainly not warmer than the south of France, or at least of Italy. And according to all the accounts I received, vast tracts immeasurably deeper beneath the surface, and in which one might have thought only salamanders could exist, were inhabited by innumerable races organized like ourselves. I cannot pretend in any way to account for a fact which is so at variance with the recognized laws of science. Nor could Z much help me towards a solution of it. She did but conjecture that sufficient allowance had not been made by our philosophers for the extreme porousness of the interior earth, the vastness of its cavities and irregularities which serve to create free currents of air and frequent winds, and for the various modes in which heat is evaporated and thrown off. She allowed, however, that there was a depth at which the heat was deemed to be intolerable to such organized life as was known to the experience of the Vrilya, though their philosophers believed that even in such places life of some kind, life sentient, life intellectual, would be found abundant and thriving, could the philosophers penetrate to it. Wherever the all-good builds, said she, there be sure he places inhabitants. He loves not empty dwellings. She added, however, that many changes in temperature and climate had been effected by the skill of the Vrilya, and that the agency of vril had been successfully employed in such changes. She described a subtle and life-giving medium called lie, which I suspect to be identical with the ethereal oxygen of Dr. Lewin's, wherein work wherein work all the correlative forces united under the name of vril, and contended that wherever this medium could be expanded, as it were, sufficiently for the various agencies of vril to have ample play, a temperature congenial to the highest forms of life could be secured. She said also that it was the belief of their naturalists that flowers and vegetation had been produced originally, whether developed from seeds born from the surface of the earth in the earlier convulsions of nature, or imported by the tribes that first sought refuge in cavernous hollows, through the operations of the light constantly brought to bear on them, and the gradual improvement in culture. She said also that since the vril light had superseded all other light-giving bodies, the colors of flower and foliage had become more brilliant, and vegetation had acquired larger growth. Leaving these matters to the consideration of those better competent to deal with them, I must now devote a few pages to the very interesting question connected with the language of the Vrilya. Aliens. Chapter 12. The language of the Vrilya is peculiarly the language of the Vrilya is peculiarly interesting because it seems to me to exhibit with great clearness the traces of the three main transitions through which language passes in attaining to perfection of form. One of the most illustrious of recent philologists, Max Muller, in arguing for the analogy between the strata of language and the strata of the earth, lays down his absolute dogma. Quote, no language can, by any possibility, be inflectional without having passed through the agglutinative and isolating stratum. No language can be agglutinative without clinging with its roots to the underlying stratum of isolation. End quote. On the stratification of language, page 20. Taking then the Chinese language as the best existing type of the original isolating stratum, quote, as the faithful photograph of man in his leading strings, trying the muscles of his mind, groping his way, and so delighted with his first successful grasps that he repeats them again and again, end quote, Max Muller, page 3. We have, in the language of the Vrilya, still, quote, clinging with its roots to the underlying stratum, end quote, the evidences of the original isolation. It abounds in monosyllables, which are the foundations of the language. The transition into the agglutinative form marks an epoch that must have gradually extended through ages. The written literature of which has only survived in a few fragments of symbolical mythology and certain pithy sentences which have passed into popular proverbs. With the extant literature of the Vrilya, the inflectional stratum commences. No doubt at that time there must have operated concurrent causes in the fusion of races by some dominant people, and the rise of some great literary phenomena by which the form of language became arrested and fixed. As the inflectional stage prevailed over the agglutinative, it is surprising to see how much more boldly the original roots of the language project from the surface that conceals them. In the old fragments and proverbs of the preceding stage, the monosyllables which compose those roots vanish amidst words of enormous length, comprehending whole sentences from which no one part can be disentangled from the other and employed separately. But when the inflectional form of language became so far advanced as to have its scholars and grammarians, they seem to have united in extirpating all such polysynthetical and polysyllabic monsters as devouring invaders of the aboriginal forms. Words beyond three syllables became proscribed as barbarous, and in proportion as the language grew thus simplified, it increased in strength, in dignity, and in sweetness. Though now very compressed in sound, it gains in clearness by that compression. By a single letter according to its position, they contrive to express all that with civilized nations in our upper world it takes the waste, sometimes of syllables, sometimes of sentences, to express. Let me here cite one or two instances. Arn, which I will translate man. Arna, men. The letter S is with them a letter implying multitude, according to where it is placed. Sarna means mankind. Arnsa, a multitude of men. The prefix of certain letters in their alphabet invariably denotes compound significations. For instance, gl, which with them is a single letter, as is a single letter with the Greeks. At the commencement of a word infers an assemblage or union of things, sometimes kindred, sometimes dissimilar, as urn, a house, glun, a town, i.e., an assemblage of houses. Arta is sorrow, Glarta, a public calamity. Auron is the health or well being of a man. Glauron, the well being of the state, the good of the community, and a word constantly in their mouths is agloron, which denotes their political creed, viz., that the first principle of a community is the good of all. Ob is invention, sila, a tone in music, globsila, as uniting the ideas of invention in a musical intonation, is the classical word for poetry, abbreviated in ordinary conversation to globs. Na, which with them is, like gl, but a single letter, always, when an initial implies something antagonistic to life or joy or comfort, resembling in this the Aryan root nak, expressive of perishing or destruction. Nax is darkness, gnarl, death, naria, sin or evil. Nas, an uttermost condition of sin and evil, corruption. In writing, they deem it irreverent to express the Supreme Being by any special name. He is symbolized by what may be termed the hieroglyphic of a pyramid. In prayer, they address him by a name which they deem too sacred to confide to a stranger, and I know it not. In conversation, they generally use a periphrastic epithet such as the all good, the letter V, symbolical of the inverted pyramid, where it is an initial, nearly always denotes excellence of power, as vril, of which I have said so much. Vid, an immortal spirit, vidya, immortality. Cum, pronounced like the Welsh cum, denotes something of a hollowness. Coombe itself is a cave. Coomin, a hole. Z-coombe, a valley. Coombe-z, vacancy or void. Bolddoom, ignorance, literally, knowledge void. Posh is their name for the government of the many, or the ascendancy of the most ignorant or hollow. Posh is an almost untranslatable idiom implying, as the reader will see later, contempt. The closest rendering I can give to it is our slang term bosh, and this kumpash may be loosely rendered hollow bosh. But when democracy or kumpash degenerates from popular ignorance into that popular passion or ferocity which precedes its decease, as, to cite illustrations from the upper world, during the French reign of terror, or for the 50 years of the Roman Republic preceding the ascendancy of Augustus. Their name for that state of things is gleknos. Ek is strife, glek, the universal strife. Nos, as I said before, is corruption or rot. Thus, gleknos may be construed the universal strife rot. Their compounds are very expressive, thus both being knowledge and to a participle that implies the action or causality approaching, or the action of cautiously approaching. To both is their word for philosophy. Pa is a contemptuous exclamation analogous to our idiom stuff and nonsense. Pa both, literally stuff and nonsense knowledge, is their term for futile and false philosophy, and applied to a species of metaphysical or speculative ratiocination formerly in vogue, which consisted in making inquiries that could not be answered and were not worth making. Such, for instance, as why does an Arn have 5 toes to his feet instead of 4 or 6? Did the first Arn, created by the All-Good, have the same number of toes as his descendants? In the form by which an Arn will be recognized by his friends in the future state of being, will he retain any toes at all? And, if so, will they be material toes or spiritual toes? I take these illustrations of Pa Both not in irony or jest, but because the very inquiries I name form the subject of a controversy by the latest cultivators of that science 4,000 years ago. And the declension of nouns, I was informed that anciently there were 8 cases, one more than in the Sanskrit grammar. But the effect of time has been to reduce those cases and multiply, instead of these varying terminations, explanatory propositions. At present, in the grammar submitted to my study, there were 4 cases to nouns, 3 having various terminations, and the 4th a differing prefix. In the elder inflectional literature, the dual form existed. It has been long obsolete. The genitive case with them is also obsolete. The dative supplies its place. They say the house to a man instead of the house of a man. When used sometimes in poetry, the genitive in the termination is the same as the nominative. So is the ablative. The preposition that marks it being a prefix or suffix at option and generally decided by ear, according to the sound of the noun. It will be observed that the prefix hill marks the vocative case. It is always retained in addressing another, except in the most intimate domestic relations. Its omission would be considered rude, just as in our forms. Just as in our of forms of speech, in addressing a king, it would have been deemed disrespectful to say king and reverential to say O king. In fact, as they have no titles of honor, the vocative adjuration supplies the place of a title and is and is given impartially to all. The prefix hill enters into the composition of words that imply distant communications, as hilya, to travel. In the conjugation of their verbs, which is much too lengthy a subject to enter on here, the auxiliary verb ya, to go, which plays so considerable part in the Sanskrit, appears and performs a kindred office, as if it were a radical in some language from which both had descended. But another auxiliary, or opposite signification, also accompanies it and shares its labors, viz., z, to stay or repose. Thus, ya enters into the future tense, and z in the preterite of all verbs requiring auxiliaries. Yam, I shall go. Yayam, I shall go. Yaniya, I shall go. Literally, I go to go. Zampuyan, I have gone. Literally, I rest from gone. Za, as a termination, implies by analogy progress, movement, efflorescence. Z, as a terminal, denotes fixity, sometimes in a good sense, sometimes in a bad, according to the word with which it is coupled. Ivazi, eternal goodness. Nanzi, eternal evil. Pu, from, enters as a prefix to words that denote repugnance, or things from which we ought to be averse. Pupra, disgust. Punaria, falsehood, the vilest kind of evil. Push, or posh, as I have already confessed to be untranslatable literally, it is an expression of contempt not unmixed with pity. This radical seems to have originated from inherent sympathy between the labial effort and the sentiment that impelled it. Pu being an utterance in which the breath is expelled from the lips with more or less vehemence. On the other hand, z, when an initial, is with them a sound in which the breath is sucked inward, and thus zu, pronounced zu, which in their language is one letter, is the ordinary prefix to words that signify something that attracts, pleases, touches the heart, as zoomer, love, zutza, love, zuzalia, delight. This indrawn sound of z seems indeed naturally appropriate to fondness. Thus, even in our language, mothers say to their babies in defiance of grammar, zoo, darling. And I have heard a learned professor at Boston call his wife, he had only been married a month, zoo, little pet. I cannot quit this subject, however, without observing by what slight changes in the dialects favored by different tribes of the same race, the original signification and beauty of sounds may become confused and deformed. Z told me with much indignation that Zummer, love, which in the way she uttered it seemed slowly taken down to the very depths of her heart, was, in some not very distant communities of the Vrilya, vitiated into the half-hissing, half-nasal, wholly disagreeable sound of subber. I thought to myself, it only wanted the introduction of in before or you to render it into an English word significant of the last quality an amorous guy would desire in her summer. I will but mention another peculiarity in this language which gives equal force and brevity to its forms of expressions. A is with them, as with us, the first letter of the alphabet, and is often used as a prefix word by itself to convey a complex idea of sovereignty or chiefdom or presiding principle. For instance, Eva is goodness, Diva, goodness, and happiness united. Diva is unerring and absolute truth. I have already noticed the value of and gloran, so and vril, to whose properties they trace their present state of civilization. Vril denotes, as I have said, civilization itself. The philologist will have seen from the above how much the language of the Vrilya is akin to the Aryan or Indo-Germanic, but like all languages, it contains words and forms in which transfers from very opposite sources of speech have been taken. The very title of Tur, which they give to their supreme magistrate, indicates theft from a tongue akin to the Turanian. They say themselves that this is a foreign word borrowed from a title which their historical records show to have been borne by the chief of a nation with whom the ancestors of the Vrilya were, in very remote periods, on friendly terms, but which has become long extinct. And they say that when, after the discovery of Vril, they remodeled their political institutions, they expressly adopted a title taken from an extinct race and a dead language for that of their chief magistrate, in order to avoid all titles for that office with which they had previous associations. Should life be spared to me, I may collect into systematic form such knowledge as I acquired of this language during my sojourn among the Vrilya. But what I have already said will perhaps suffice to show to genuine philological students that a language which, preserving so many of the roots in the aboriginal form and clearing from the immediate but transitory polysynthetical stage so many rude encumbrances, from popular ignorance into that popular passion or ferocity which precedes its decease, as, to cite illustrations from the upper world, during the French reign of terror, or for the 50 years of the Roman Republic preceding the ascendancy of Augustus. Their name for that state of things is gleknos. Ek is strife, glek the universal strife. Nos, as I said before, is corruption or rot. Thus, gleknos may be construed the universal strife rot. Their compounds are very expressive. Thuat, which the Arna have attained, forbids the progressive cultivation of literature, especially in the two main divisions of fiction and history. I shall have occasion to show later. That chapter was very poorly edited, and the way he wrote it, that was very poorly edited. He used that. You can tell that he isn't a philologist, but you can tell that he is reading philology, and that he, the man, Edward Bulwer Lytton, wants very much to participate in the explosion of philology in his time period, which did happen historically. All the things he's talking about, all the things he's trying to participate in, did happen, and so you can tell that he's reading the studies. Like back in the day, back in the time that he's writing, the 19th century, it was like every day they were coming out with a new discovery of a connection between the European languages. Like, it turns out that Germanic and English are basically the same language. If you go back in time long enough, they have the same ancestor. And that was a big deal. And so some of the things he's doing here, where he's showing that the super long words that can contain sentences in a word, that's a German convention. And so when he's talking about how their language is similar to the Indo-European language family, he's taking things that were very much in the scientific cutting edge of his day, and he's trying to manipulate them like he knows what he's talking about for an audience of people who also don't know what he's talking about, but would want to participate, would want to be amused and entertained with these things that are happening in the scientific and cultural milieu of their day. Like, this book isn't really that different from the Hail Mary by that hack of a writer. This is not different from that. This isn't different from Inception or I can't remember what it's called now. Interstellar. This book isn't different from that. He's just trying to make a cool story with the science of his day. We just don't think of philology philology, the study of ancient languages, we don't think of that as an interesting plot point today. Believe me, because it's one of the main mystery clues in my Not Rob Longshore, and no one gives a fuck. That's why I'm not working on that, by the way. People who come by and they're like, hey, are you working on Rob? It seems like you've got a lot there. Yeah, I'm not working on it because you don't actually give a fuck. You don't get it. You don't read it. Most certainly you're not actually reading it and listening to it. But this stuff that he's talking about, to his audience, his 19th century audience, they understood all of this. Who knows? Who's ever heard of this guy, J.R.R. Tokens? J.R.R. Token, right? Tokens, game tokens, useless tokens, right? That's what he was, right? We've all heard of J.R.R. Tolkien, right? We know he was a philologist, right? We know that the first book, The Hobbit, takes place underground, right? We know that Tolkien's a hack, right? We know that. Like, I'm not the only person alive who knows that J.R.R. Tolkien is a hack. Okay, moving on. Chapter 13. This people have a religion, and whatever may be said against it, at least it has these strange peculiarities. Firstly, that all believe in the creed they profess. Secondly, that they all practice the precepts which the creed inculcates. They unite in the worship of one divine creator and sustainer of the universe. They believe that it is one of the properties of the all-permeating agency of Vril to transmit to the wellspring of life and intelligence every thought that a living creature can conceive, and though they do not contend that the idea of a deity is innate, yet they say that the Arn is the only creature, so far as their observation of nature extends, to whom the capacity of conceiving that idea, with all the trains of thought which open out from it, is vouchsafed. They hold that this capacity is a privilege that cannot have been given in vain, and hence that prayer and thanksgiving are acceptable to the divine creator and necessary to the complete development of the human creature. They offer their devotions both in private and public. Not being considered one of their species, I was not admitted into the building or temple in which the public worship is rendered. But I am informed that the service is exceedingly short and unattended with any pomp of ceremony. It is a doctrine with the Vrilya that earnest devotion or complete abstraction from the actual world cannot, with benefit to itself, be maintained long at a stretch by the human mind, especially in public, and that all attempts to do so either lead to fanaticism or to hypocrisy. When they pray in private, it is when they are alone or with their young children. They say that in ancient times there was a great number of books written upon speculations as to the nature of the deity, and upon the forms of belief or worship supposed to be most agreeable to him. But these were found to lead to such hatred and angry disputations as not only to shake the peace of the community and divide families before the most united, but in the course of discussing the attributes of the deity, the existence of the deity himself became argued away, or, what was worse, became invested with the passions and infirmities of the human disputants. For, said my host, since a finite being like an Arn cannot possibly define the infinite, so when he endeavors to realize an idea of the divinity, he only reduces the divinity into an Arn like himself. During the later ages, therefore, all theological speculations, though not forbidden, have been so discouraged as to have fallen utterly into disuse. The Vrilya unite in a conviction of a future state more felicitous and more perfect than the present. If they have very vague notions of the doctrine of rewards and punishments, it is perhaps because they have no system of rewards and punishments among themselves. for there are no crimes to punish, and their moral standard is so that even no arn among them is, upon the whole, considered more virtuous than another. If one excels perhaps in one virtue, another equally excels in some other virtue. If one has his prevalent fault or infirmity, so also another has his. In fact, in their extraordinary mode of life, that's not supposed to be a period there, but anyway, this was poorly edited. In their extraordinary mode of life, period. There are so few temptations to wrong that they are good, according to their notions of goodness, merely because they live. They have some fanciful notions upon the continuance of life when once bestowed, even in the vegetable world, as the reader will see in the next chapter. Yeah, that was very poorly edited, actually. Like, remarkably poorly edited. It's like this is like a first draft that went to publication, and because it was Edward Bulwer Lytton has become so popular over the course of time and was so popular when it was published, there hasn't been a second edition where somebody went in and cleaned up the fucking grammar. Even just the spelling and grammar is so bad, hilariously bad. Anyway, we could do another chapter if you wanted, because I burned through that one pretty quick, but I'm actually feeling like I don't want to do another chapter. And so I feel like I get to decide what I do with my time. So we've got 14 more minutes. I can open the floor for questions, discussions for the 4 or 5 of you who are here, who have stayed, future audience, the replay gang, as I have heard some of you call yourselves. Please don't feel don't hesitate to leave your thoughts in the chat so I can address them tomorrow. Yeah, you like that, Renasha? It's a bad story, but we're doing it for Spoopyween. I'm going to end up saying this after every day of doing this. We're doing this for Spoopyween because there are people, specifically the Nazis, there are people who believe this shit was real because he goes to such detail in the language and stuff like this. But he went to such detail in the language and stuff like that because that's just what everybody was like back then. That's just what all creative writing was like back then, because that was what was happening in science. That was what was big in the sciences. They figured out, like he was talking about, they figured out that the they used to call it the Indo-German or Indo-Aryan. They figured out that the Indian languages, the languages of the Indian subcontinent, that they're the same language family as English and German. It was Germans who figured out that Indian and German, the language of the Vedas and the language of Wagner, or the language of Wagner is fine, because yeah, the language of Wagner works because he was beloved of the Nazis. Well, I love to hear that you send me good wishes, Renasha. I appreciate that. If I were a single man, I would say send nudes, and it would still be a joke. I'm not a single man, and my fiance watches these back, so that would not be funny. But anyway, the people cared about this stuff deeply. They figured out that basically the entire northern hemisphere was one language family, except for China and some pockets here and there, like Estonian and Basque are language isolates. And then that became a story of racial and genetic superiority, cultural superiority, and it became very difficult. It became very difficult. I made a short about this, actually. It became very difficult for people from the southern hemisphere to maintain a cultural and genetic superiority argument when everybody in the world is speaking either French, German, Portuguese, Spanish, or English. It becomes a very difficult argument to make that you are racially superior in a language that your race didn't develop. That becomes very difficult. Very difficult. Now, there was a whole war the Second World War, fought over this superiority argument. And it was fought between, at the end, it was fought between Japan and America over the superiority of the language and cultural system. The Japanese argument for the superiority of their language and cultural system is that they would genocide themselves before capitulating to losing that war. And so anyway, America won that war, and then America turned around and said, all right, no more racial superiority garbage. It keeps leading to these giant wars. And now we have modern China, Russia, and Europe. Well, I mean, it's not like I played no part in having my awesome chick, Renasha. This isn't a shot at anybody who's not Rachel, but I did hand select her. It wasn't an accident. Yeah, she's extremely intelligent. She's very sweet. She's very polite. And she's my woman. She's a counterpart to what I bring to the table. Like that meme, you know, a man asked me once what I bring to the table, and I said, fuck you, I'm not a fucking server. I'm not a fucking waitress, is actually what the woman says. She is a compliment to what I am trying to do. Yes, absolutely. And I really do appreciate you calling that out, because it's a compliment to a man. When a woman says, your woman compliments you, it's a compliment to a man. This whole, oh yeah, she's so much better than me, I don't know why she's with me thing that men play isn't humility. They mean it. That's why in the modern, if you were paying attention, the modern, I'm telling you, people believe this is true. They believed it so true that feminism is modeled off the way the Vrilya date. He talks so much in friendly terms about feminism on the surface because it was feminists who were reading this. He was popular in feminist circles. It's the most common and the most awful, because they've done absolutely nothing to deserve her affection but be sexy babies. They've been sexy, weak babies that needed a mommy. And these women, I'm not talking about you, but if the shoe fits, Renasha, I'm not talking about you, and the women feel like they have a purpose and suckling their dicks for them. I have never been in a relationship like that, and that's why it's only at 38 years old that I handpicked Rach. I let women choose me up to her, and they choose you because they think you're weak. And that you'll play house with them. I'm not talking about you. Yeah. I'm talking about you specifically. But I am a speaker of truth. I'm a lover of truth. And if the shoe fits, I'm really not saying it to hurt your feelings. I sit in public all day and I just watch. And most dudes can't even get their fucking order. They can't even get their fucking order. They don't get up and get both fucking plates for their girl. They get up and get their plate and they come back and their girl's still sitting there and they're like, I guess I'll go get my plate, dickhead. And these are people they've been married to for years. Men have no idea why they're in a relationship besides a sexual outlet. No idea. Or they need somebody to wash their socks. I've made about that many too. I've made about 2,000 shorts. There are people I am here to call out, but you are not one of them, Renasha. I am not here to lash out at you. Anyway, I'm not lashing out at these women for giving these men sex. I'm annoyed at them for giving them sex, but the women want sex too. But that's what he just told us about the Vrilya. They don't leave the relationship because it's convenient sex. Yeah. Well, I got I did the whole shaggy dog philosopher thing, and I got fucking sick of lying all the time. I was constantly in a position to lie to people for their feelings, to maintain their feelings, so they didn't think that I was talking about them to them, which is super fucking rude. But people just automatically assume you're objectifying them, because most people do. And that's why he talks so much shit about surface philosophers, right? Because they're just going around objectifying people, taking people from people and turning them into numbers that aren't real. Like my guy, Mr. S, today, last night actually, but it was after midnight, so it counts as today, and I'm really proud of him. I'm really grateful that he did it. He sent me a video about football analytics, and I almost lost myself in it. I had to take a nap today instead of watch it. Like literally, I would have lost myself in it and wanted to, so I took a nap instead and didn't dream. It was a wonderful, wonderful sleep. Just yonked, just shut off. Consciousness just shut off and wake up and like, oh, I rested. Oh, I legitimately rested. Yeah, people just assume you're objectifying them, and I'm not trying to objectify you. I am doing my very best to personify you, to realize you. Yeah, it's an insecurity thing. It's exactly what it is. It's exactly what it is. It's an insecurity thing. Yep. Who's more important and who's worth offending? I once began an essay. Analogizing life, civilization, to a dinner party. And that's what it is. That's exactly what it is. What you described. The more important you are, the more offended you understand what the more important you think you are, the more offended you get. That's why people come around to my channel when I'm crashing out, and they think I'm self-important. They think I'm self-important. Well, not funny enough, they're bad sleep, but I know how to fix the sleep thing. But I gotta teach. Rach. Yeah, people do love that. Ranasha. Rach has actually taught me a lot. There's a whole community, not a whole community, niche, very, very large. Niche is the wrong way to say it. If there's a pie chart, right? If we were to think of YouTube as a pie chart, is how I'm seeing it, right? There's a very large section of that pie chart who are only people who participate in, and one way or another, either as viewers or content creators, in what I'm going to call a drama market. Basically, they try to make real the Real Housewives phenomenon. They try to take things like the really toxic reality TV of the late first decade of the 2000s, right? The late aughts. They try to take that stuff and then make it real, like extending this like fake reality on YouTube. And so they think I'm trying to contribute to it, or they bring it to me to because it's just how they live. And so they bring it to me. And people do love it. It's a very large, when I say niche, it's more like a section. It's more like, honestly, it's more like if you walked into Walmart, it's like a whole part of the store. It's like a very, very large amount of YouTube I had no idea existed. She calls it the Mean Girls part of the internet. And that's just what people are like. That's what people really want out of this space. That's why they come through here and they say the crazy shit to me that they say. And so I would like to thank you guys. Spoopyween is growing, actually. It's the only thing I'm doing that's growing. And that makes me ebullient. Because this is the only thing I want to be doing. So thank you guys. Huge ups to Eric and Ranasha right now, and the other three of you. This is the only thing I'm doing that's growing, that's getting and retaining viewers. And this is the only thing I want to be doing. Literally, that's why I slept in the middle of the day, because I didn't want to just sit around live and do nothing. I was talking to Eric about it all day. Yeah, Renasha. But you weren't here for it. When I was sitting in Taco Bell, there was mega drama going on, mega drama, and like personal and professional happening in that store, very loud. And they know I'm live on YouTube. Now, maybe not all of them, but I've told them I sit in here and I just go live on YouTube. Yeah, the own reality show. Yes, Renasha. That's I had no idea that that thing was happening. I had no idea it was happening. But this space, this channel that I'm doing, this thing I'm doing, it's October, Renasha. I don't think people fully understand that there are certain months that are bad, and October is one of them. October is a month that just everything that happens in October fucking sucks. So you got to keep your head up and you got to be prepared for that. It's just what October is like. November is going to be better. That's why it ends on that great big eating holiday in the United States. November will be better. October always sucks. December always sucks. That's why there's that great big holiday right at the end of it. And that's why there's like a series of them, a bunch of them right there. And the last little bit of December and January is always a ball of shit. That's why there's that great big fucking holiday right at the beginning of it. So just keep your head up. The next several months just fucking suck. And everybody likes to pretend like every day is a new day to be excellent, but some months just suck. They just suck. It's the weather change. Yeah, January is the worst for everybody because the weather. Everywhere in the world. That's not true. Everywhere in the northern hemisphere. And the further you get away from the equator in January, the worse it gets. That's just what it's like. It's just the whole planet is like this. And then it's the opposite in the southern hemisphere. July is a fucking nightmare for those people. Everybody does, Renasha, because there's all this pressure to treat it like a new year. Kind of like I said, like every day we're supposed to treat every day like a new chance to crush it. We're supposed to treat every year like a new opportunity to crush it. Yeah, because there's all this pressure on you to do some big thing. I have pathological demand avoidance. So these things that you're talking about being hard on you and weighing on you, they're things that I notice instantly because they're demands. Christmas is a demand to be happy. They say, have a happy holiday season. Fuck you, that's 4 months. Yeah, it's okay. You don't have to be that kind of person. That's a type A personality bullshit that you don't have to participate in. That's kind of why I'm here. I'm going to put this real close to my mouth. I'm going to do my very best not to yell. But you don't have to do what you're fucking told all the time. If it doesn't make sense for you to do it, you don't have to do it. Okay. I managed not to shout that. I have pathological demand avoidance, and that makes me crazy that more people don't realize that. You don't have to. Not anymore. You did. You did. Back then. Back then. I was thinking about it today. The part of the reason I don't like to nap in public, I don't like to let people see me nap. Well, thank you for laughing. I do think of it that way. To me, every day is a new opportunity to just have a decent day, to just end the day well. And so I was thinking about it. Part of the reason I don't like to sleep in public, I don't like to be seen sleeping in public, is A, I don't like people to know that I'm that relaxed, because that somebody's going to try to fuck your day up if they see you that relaxed. And B, it was not that long ago that if you didn't have a job, or you were obviously just fucking off in the middle of the day, not contributing to whatever needed to be done, you would be drafted into the war effort as a fucking prisoner. The police would literally arrest you for the crime of sleeping in public, and you'd be pressed into a press gang. I shouldn't have said pressed into a press gang. You would be pressed into a gang, and those gangs were called press gangs because the people who populated the gang were pressed into service. No, I haven't participated in the New Year's resolution bullshit ever. Yeah, well, you're low key, you're supposed to fear. That's why it's a drinking holiday. And then the opportunity for this to be the best year ever it's an economic holiday. It's about spending more money. And so all of that, the propaganda, the radio, TV, memes, internet, all of this, it's about getting you to spend more money. Because if you get a new gym membership, if you buy a whole new wardrobe, if you get your hair done, if you get your nails did, if you get new shoes, I know that shoes are part of the wardrobe, but just fucking work with me here. I know how it breaks down for a woman. If you do all of these things, you've just spent another year's income, probably in credit. And they're good with that. That's how they sustain their business, because as soon as Christmas, as soon as Black Friday's over, they're back to losing money again. All these restaurants, all these industries, they lose money until July. And so, biologically speaking, you're supposed to worry when you get to January. Well, right. That's why everybody's drinking, is to stave off the terror that you're useless. Well, yeah, that's why I don't participate, Renasha. It's designed to make you feel hatred, right? But of who you were the past year. If you're just happy with what you did because every day you went to bed well. I mean this. This works. I've been doing it for 38 years. If you go to bed well every day, no matter how bad everything that happened before the going to bed well, then everything stacks and it works toward a better future. And sure, I haven't always gone to bed well and I haven't always woken up well. My teeth are rotting out of my head because I don't follow my own rules perfectly. I don't follow my own method perfectly because sometimes I look at my own method and I go, what's the fucking point? Nobody fucking cares. Yeah. Well, yeah. It's like I hear a lot of songs. And over a long period of human history of women complaining about just not wanting to spend the night alone. And so by that mathematics of making sure you go to bed right, if you go to bed with a man beside you every night, I'm not saying to you, but to the idea of dating, right? Entertaining and entertainment and dating together, where you're entertained by your date. It only makes sense logically. It doesn't make sense rationally. It's not something that makes sense as a long-term approach. You're saying, I don't like it. It feels like bullshit, because it is bullshit. It is bullshit. But from an economic, from the perspective of somebody who's trying to sell contentment, you say to somebody, well, if you say to a woman, well, if you end the day with a man in your bed, then you've ended the day well. And everything that led to that doesn't matter, because you survived the day, you wake up tomorrow, you're safe, you got a man in your bed. You don't have that basic depression crushing in on you. But that's not actually a way to stave off depression. That's just inviting it, as you have indicated. I've never heard of that idiom before, though. Enter date. It makes sense to me, though. That it makes sense to me that that's how women have been talking about it for the last decade, or among themselves. A certain class, a certain category of high class women would talk like that about dating. Yeah. Not why aren't you looking for somebody? Why don't you already have multiple men lined up just to keep your bed occupied, just to give you something to do? I was talking about this with Rach today, so she'll hear this. But it's a lie. I was talking to Rach about this. It's a lie that there aren't enough hours in the day. Most days, there are too many hours in the day. And so women, I'm talking to you because you're a woman. I can't tell you a man's way to solve the problem. And I said I need Rach for these moments. I need to teach her how to guide you with this, because I have to say women this, men this, because we're different. Well, it's a juggling act. It's a juggling act, right? I'm saying from their perspective, from the perspective of what we're sold, what we're taught, a certain economic class of people will tell you that you wouldn't be hopping from one person to another. I know you understand, but you're not the only person I'm talking to. There's a whole future audience of people that have never had your life experiences. Like, I don't know that Aiden's not 13, for example, and never had a girlfriend, never had a boyfriend, never listened to two adults talk about real shit before. And so I have to remember that sometimes I'm just going to have to tell you things that I know you understand, because I don't know who these other four people are. And I don't know who's going to click into this into the future. It does make me feel a certain kind of despair that I have to do that to you. Yeah. Well, this is intense because I'm talking to you and you're the only person talking to me, and these people are listening to you and I talk. And so it feels important to all of us to establish I'm not an idiot. I don't think you're an idiot. I hope that comes loud and clear. If I thought you were an idiot, I would ask you, are you a stupid person? Am I wasting my time? I'm glad we talked about that, because that stuff is all kind of nested. This conversation that Renasha and I are having, for the future audience, for those of you that are passing through, for anybody here, anybody hears it, this conversation that she and I are having is nested in this work. The chapters that we read did nest to this conversation, whether she was thinking about it because of the book or she was thinking about it because she's thinking about it. I am using this book to talk about this stuff because these concerns, dating, the evolution and the development of dating, the 19th century was a time when class restrictions on sex and marriage were being lifted for the first time in Christian history. That's not true. But for the first time in recent history, restrictions on sexual activity were being lifted. And so this book is contributing to the conversation of how we got to where we are today. He's saying he, as a writer, thinks that it would be better if the woman picked, and if the woman had the power in the relationship to terminate it. But it's also always better if the woman does what she's fucking told within the relationship. If the man makes decisions, the woman follows the decisions, but the woman has the power to pick a man who's going to make decisions that she wants to follow. That's the mistake. He's very clearly saying that's the mistake that we make. It's like Renash and I are talking, women just wanting a body in their bed, and then it turning out that the body in their bed isn't a body that they want to follow out of the bed, maybe even in the bed. Maybe it turns out that after 3 or 4 times together, he's an extremely lazy and selfish fuck, and now you don't even want him in your bed. And so he was talking about, and he was observing his culture. Edward Bulwer Lytton, that is, not the narrator of the book, but the author of the book, is observing his culture, and he's sharing his opinions. Sort of. Oh, I see. I did that. Okay. Sort of the slave thing. Yeah, we don't have good language. We don't have good words anymore for talking leadership, following. You know, we have so much hyperbolic, like your slave. It was never meant to be that. Maybe for a certain class of people. Hey, take care, Christy. I haven't watched Labyrinth, the David Bowie vehicle. I have not. I haven't seen it, no. Right. Right. It's a sort of like, it's like saying, yeah, sort of. It's convoluted, right? It's confusing. It's like, let me make decisions with you in mind. And if you say no, that means I made a bad decision. I do understand what you're trying to say. It's like, it's like what, you weren't there, but for anybody who's watching the meta material, it's kind of what my guy at Taco Bell was going through, where it's like he wants his leader to lead, and he wants his leader to lead in ways that he can follow, but his leader is leading in ways that he feels like he can't follow. And so a marriage between man and woman is supposed to be, the woman needs led, the man does the leading, and she is ideally picking, or her father, her mother is setting her up with, ideally she's picking a man who's leading somewhere she wants to go. And the hard thing is that men lie. Everybody lies. So when a man says something, like, gives you all these flowery dreams, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and yeah, there was drama at Taco Bell today. Uh, they were really going through it, just culturally, at the store. Um, and so anyway, like in the emo, like I grew up adjacent to the emo community, or the metal community, or the nerd community. So many guys will be like, "Oh, one day I'm going to be rich and famous, and when I'm rich and famous, um, then blank whatever, right? Or I'm going to take you to this place, I'm going to take you to that place," and they secure sex from women on these promises. And then so many women are like, "Oh, the honeymoon that never manifested," and it's like, well, you don't say yes. It's like, in any good business deal, right? I used to get so mad. I got so mad at my dad. My dad, I should have inherited a machine shop business from my father, but my father decided to um, manufacture and ship product that he didn't get paid for, and then the company um, that he was doing business with, that owed him money, said, "Nah, we just won't send you the money. And in fact, it'll be cheaper for us to just screw you over in court." And it's like, yeah, that's gonna happen every time. It's gonna happen every time. Girls, if you agree to sex before he does the thing that he's saying, contingent on sex, I will do this thing. If you give him the sex first, he's not gonna do the thing. Think about it. Neither would you. It's like, if work paid you first, are you gonna go? No. They already paid you. This is why salaried professionals either work too hard to keep the salary because they know what they've got, or they do fuck all because they know what they've got. Like, I'm not trying to be cynical. On some level, I am trying to be cynical. I'm not trying to be hurtful in my cynical. I'm just trying to cut right to the center. Like, does anybody watch Binging with Babish? He makes a beautiful sandwich, and then he cuts it, and then he moves the one slice so you can see the cross section. I'm just trying to give you a cross section of these very difficult problems. They don't have an easy solution. I'm not saying there's an easy solution. Like today at Yes, don't sleep with everybody who tells you they're going to be a lawyer after college. It's like, watch Wolf of Wall Street with critical eyes. Watch it with critical eyes. Watch Tom Brady with critical eyes. Girls, what did the men in those, like, what did those two men, what did they do? They had an average, super supportive wife until they were rich. It's just culture stuff. I don't want to talk about it, Renasha, because it's not my drama, and I'm not actually friends with those people, and I'm not here to talk their drama. But they've got drama. The guy who manages clothes isn't a manager, and so when things get stressful, he goes home. and he's not going to get fired because he's living with and the boyfriend of and only has that job because of he's living with and the boyfriend of the general manager. So it's just a mess. It's just a mess. But it's a mess for different reasons. I feel bad for that guy. He was trying real hard to get me to volunteer to come in and help, and I'm just like, no. I could do it. I could run the store alone, but no. No. It wasn't. I wasn't involved. No, you have no reason to be sorry you asked. It was happening very loud during the live stream. You'll hear all of it. I didn't mean to broadcast it, but I absolutely did. But that's the world we live in, and I'm not trying to make money off their strife, but I did use their strife as a teaching moment so that I changed it enough that I have artistic license to have been in that space with a live hot microphone. Nah, they're good people. They're all good people. They're just overmatched by what's required of them because there's no manager around. Like I've been talking about this, not manager, owner. There's no owner around. So I've been talking about this at Panera for a while, and I'm about 65% convinced that the ownership at Panera are watching because every time I bitch about something specific, yeah, hey, if I'm in public, I cannot control what happens, and I've told them that I'm recording. So I've told them I'm live. So whatever. I'm certainly not being. I'm definitely not being secretive that I'm doing it. Um, but yeah, when so the difference in the Panera and the Taco Bell is the Panera is a franchise, so it's owned by an owner, and I know that owner by their face because they show it at the store. Um, and that's the difference. So that store is struggling for the same reasons. It's struggling for the same reasons. Yeah, they're a franchise. They're being recorded, and they shouldn't be making enough noise, whether I am or am not recorded, that I can hear them. And so that's kind of why I leave my mic hot, is because people let me see them like this, and they let me see them like this in a way that's not professional and it's not discreet. What up, Chicago? They should not be yelling and screaming about how there aren't enough people on the shift and how they're going to go home if they don't get it. And they absolutely shouldn't be asking me to volunteer to work for free or for the price of a taco gift or something like that. They shouldn't be doing that. Now, it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me. But that's kind of my point, is because it doesn't bother me, people show themselves to me in a way that they wouldn't to other people. And so I leave my mic hot. I don't put them on camera, but I leave my mic hot because I can make that claim, and then without the proof to back it up, I'm just making an unverifiable claim. And that you hear me say that all the time. I hate unverifiable claims. Ugh. Thank you for talking to me, Renasha. Um, thank you for giving me a way to synthesize what we just read. Because last night I was too fucking tired to try to synthesize what we had just read. It was so, to me, goofy. It's goofy shit that this story. That's what they were arguing about, was the hours thing, not having enough hours. And it is a Taco Bell wide thing. It is a corporate thing, and it's because there's no higher authority. The district and regional managers are mystery people. They may as well be men in black, and so the general managers have too close a personal relationship with their crews. That's just what it breaks down to. The shift managers can't be fired because Taco Bell is always over a barrel, but they're always over a barrel in hours because of the people they hire. It's like it's like their new hire that was there tonight was bitching about having to work dressing table by himself, and it's like, man, if you can't figure out that the difference in Taco Bell menu items is the shell that the meat, cheese, and lettuce goes in, you just don't deserve a job. And Taco Bell does a lot of charity. Taco Bell does a lot of charity. In fact, I'm not unconvinced that Taco Bell is not. I know this is a lot of double negatives, but I am not unconvinced that Taco Bell is not PepsiCo's charity wing. That Taco Bell exists so PepsiCo has a write-off. Okay, I saw you. Dances with Jellyfish. I saw you in the chat the other day, I think. Or maybe I just heard you. I remember you mentioning it. I'm not good at that shit, Renasha. But like, I was laughing because he's saying, "Oh, I can't manage this shift, just me and one closer for 2 hours, for 4 hours, really 10 to 2." And it's like, man, I could run that store from 6 to 2 by myself, alone. I could have done that. And so it's just that shift managers in restaurant, shift managers in general managers too. But people who get that manager title means that they think it means they're going to be sitting around in an office and watching security cameras. And that is just not what it means to the corporations that have that offer that title. All it means is that you are now working for 4 people. You are just now 4 crew members. Get used to it. You're 4 people, especially if you're a shift manager. If you're just a shift manager, it just means you're doing the job of 4 people, so they can have fewer people on staff. Oh, woe is me. If you change your perspective, you change the chance of a successful outcome. I don't think you're wrong. It's just like, I don't know. I don't want to say like, they're just weak, or they're just stupid, or they were not prepared they just were not prepared for the expectations of adult life. And so they think that because they're a manager, um because they think that they're a manager, that they've got somewhere in life. And it's like, in the restaurant industry, especially, if you're not an owner, you're nobody. You're not doing shit. You're really just not doing anything. The like a Taco Bell, a McDonald's. I managed a McDonald's, and I didn't manage. I did shift leadership at McDonald's, and I did shift management for Sonic. And with these companies, if you're the title is just there to make you feel good. Yeah, well, people don't understand that when you become a professional, you have 2 hats. You have your professional hat where you're representing the company, and you have your personal hat where you're representing yourself. And people think that people get themselves wrapped up in the shift. It's like my guy today, he was getting all wrapped up that, he was getting his personal emotions all wrapped up and having to work harder that night than maybe he wanted to. And it's like, you just do it. You just do it because you're a professional. Yeah, whiners are whiners, but I bitch. Like it's like something that people don't really understand about me, or really know how to approach about me, is that I'll do a thing I don't want to do. I'll piss and moan about it the whole time. I'll bitch about it the whole time, but I'm getting it done. You know, the difference is that, like, my guy didn't just piss and moan about it, get it done, and then go home and bitch at his girlfriend. Other wieners, sorry. You know, he just quit. He just gave up and left because it was uncomfortable for him. And I'm not criticizing him. I'm describing the story. Um, and that's the difference. That's the difference in somebody who is as successful as they want to be, and somebody who's not. It's the persistence in the face of adversity. I talk about that a lot. You don't have to win. You just work until close, and if it sucks, if the night doesn't go well, you just find yourself apologizing to a lot of customers. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, and you just move on. You don't need to. And see, that's the other thing, is like, so many people want to reach to the human explanation. Oh, we're short staffed. They don't care. And that's just an excuse. If you do the job poorly because you're short staffed, that means that you weren't going to do the job. Now, he just walked out. He can't be fired. That's his girlfriend is the general manager. He didn't quit. He just left. Yeah, we just don't know. And that's the thing, is he probably had shit going on. He was obviously stoned. And so what probably happened is he just got more stoned than he meant to, and he literally couldn't do the job because he was too stoned. But you have to, when you're a stoner and you do that, you have to now, oh, I got to make it about something else. And I'm not saying the guy's not got good character. I'm just saying, like, he doesn't have good incentives, and he's not in a situation that makes sense for him to persist through, because he can't get fired. There are no consequences to his behavior. And so what happens is, if, like, the longer you go without consequences, the more extreme your consequence seeking behavior gets. Yeah, exactly, Renasha. They don't care your short stuff. They don't care. But that's where I made all my money, like in tips. When I worked in service, is I never. If it was obvious that we were busy, or it was obvious that we were understaffed, I never complained. Same service. Yeah. I use these stories not to try to bury anybody. I am firmly of the belief that the reason this has gone wrong is because the general manager is female, but I don't think a male automatically fixes it. I just think the automatic assumption, or rather the assumption, that because she's a female, she has empathy and leadership skills. That right there is just automatically wrong. You're never gonna build a team with the assumption that just because she's a woman, she comes with these skill sets. And they do it all the time. I did make that argument. I did bury her boss. Her boss fucked up bad. But this store is in a great location, and corporate is not supporting it. So everybody's right. Everybody in the situation, every perspective on that situation. We talked about it at length while it was happening, but every perspective on that situation is right, and there's no way out. There's no fix. Because you say, oh, well, you just get new leadership, but then you have to replace your whole team. And so you're just stuck in a training store. This is just permanently a training store. Yeah, just keep calm. It's over when it's over. That's what I used to tell people. That phrase, it's over when it's over. When's this rush going to end? When it ends. It's a hard way for some people to live. Some people just aren't, they're not prepared for it and they never adjust to it. Yeah. But turnover, revolving door businesses, that's your general manager. That's your general manager. And it's not an easy fix because, like I said, you replace the general manager and you have to replace the staff they hired too. Yep. It either closes or it gets a complete new remodel from the top down. Yep. Because it's not an easy fix. Yep. That's what always happens because it's the only fix. It's the only thing you can do. You got to replace everybody. You got to start over from the beginning. You have to rewrite the whole store, all of it. You got to remodel the interior to get customers to come back. Yeah, the only fix is for the store to tank, and this store is only 6 months old. They just opened that store. I think about it a lot. I'm in there a lot. They don't honor their hours. So like the lobby isn't open at noon. Yeah, turning it off and back on again. Hello, Push to Bluma. How are you doing? It's exactly right. You got to just reboot the store, and you got to start at the culture, which means everybody has to go. You got to the people that you want to keep get transferred to other stores, and they usually move on. So it always happens. And so because business knows this, because business science has known this for decades, they don't fight it. They just let it happen. They have the money, frankly, to lose. Yeah, that's what's gonna happen. That's how she was behaving. Was I'm gonna get the fucking district manager is gonna be up my ass because I can't keep my managers on staff and I don't have enough shift managers. That was exactly how she was talking. Yep. And then the next thing is going to be, yep, free shit surveys that they have to push at the counter, and there's always going to be somebody standing up there at the counter. Yep. Yep. We sat in there last night and listened to her daughter talk about how fucked the whole situation is, and it's just what happens. It's just what happens. Like as soon as I learned that the general manager's boyfriend and daughter and other family members were working shifts that she wasn't working, I was like, this store's fucked. This store's fucked. You'll get your stuff when you get your food. So long as it's hot, that's all that should matter. If it's getting to be cold, something's wrong. Yeah, it's not like we have to tip for service, and it's not like they charge for convenience. They don't, actually. Yep. Yep. When they look at the hours compared to the wages, when they look at the number of cars that come through their drive-through and the number of product loss they have. You see that? That's where I was defending my guy, because he's not trained as a manager, so he doesn't know what numbers to look at to see whether he's doing his job right or not. He doesn't know. And it's that. What's our profit margin? Wait a minute. Somebody is giving away a shitload of product. Where is all this product being lost? Oh, Knights has just a bunch of product loss? Yep. And then those cameras start getting watched. And they're like, hey, you let that guy smoke in the fucking lobby. You know it says no smoking everywhere in the lobby, right? And then I get in trouble. That's real, though. They are going to start watching those cameras. Nah, today I was hanging out in the last 2 or 3 nights that I've been hanging out in Taco Bell doing the fountain. There's just been drama. that they have very loudly include me in on, and I've broadcast. I can't see that you're typing now. Hello, Nicole. Don't know. Yeah, it's working. Don't know. I digress as well. I've been telling you guys I need to go to bed for the last half hour. So thank you for giving me the floor on my own fucking channel. That wasn't the case a few weeks ago. Yeah, for sure, Renasha. It's what I'm here for. I say all the time that the fountain, this isn't a fountain production, but the fountain, my work is only as good as the conversation that's brought to it. Take it easy. If I remember right, you're 6 or 8 hours ahead of me, so it's not night for you, it's early morning for you. But enjoy your day. I plan to, Renasha. I plan to. You as well. Eric, if you're still out there, buddy, thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you for catching Christy up on what was going on in the story. And hey, I remembered where my guy is and his time zone. Look at me go. I got a fucking memory attached to my neurons. Okay, dudes. Thank you. This show is brought to you by Mr. S. Yeah, I'll do my best, Renasha. I might tell Rach to do that. Just because I gotta maintain boundaries and stuff, not for sex reasons, for professional religious reasons. But I will work on that eventually. Whether it happens tonight or not, we'll find out. Thank you. Be well. This is brought to you by my Patreon subscriber, Mr. S. If you miss me a whole lot, you're not being offensive. You're not being offensive at all. If you missed me a whole lot, there was a new Adventures of Shaggy Phil today, and I think Mr. S was asking me. He was asking me why it's so inconsistent. I think I got the game audio to work properly today. So thank you. Check that out if you missed me, and I'll be back sometime tomorrow around noon, whatever. Depends on when I wake up, when I go to bed. Thank you. Have a great night, day, evening, afternoon, whenever, wherever it is. I hope this finds you well. I hope it leaves you well. Renasha, I know. I know what you're talking about. I just like to maintain a little bit of distance between me and other people. And so we'll figure it out. Thank you guys. Be well.